time?
Mm-hmm.
Sip of coffee for good measure. Hey, I'm Owen, here from Urbane Cyclist in downtown Toronto.
I'm Veronica, also from Urbane Cyclist in downtown Toronto.
Today we're going to do something a little different. We have some brand new bike lanes outside of the shop, and obviously Toronto's been doing a lot of new bike infrastructure, and it's obviously a contentious subject as a very car-centric society. So we hear a lot of opinions, and I think we're gonna go over some customer opinions. We've read some things online, we've talked in person, and we also want to hear what you think. How do we like these new bike lanes? So we're going to talk too about what infrastructure actually means, because not all bike lanes are the same thing. There are things like sharrows, bike lanes, cycle tracks, bike paths. They're not all the same thing, and they all mean a little different.
Mean something.
So I think inherently we do think, obviously as a bike shop and a bunch of cyclists, we like bike lanes generally. And if we're ranking bike infrastructure for best, and best being
Farthest. I think it's not really what's best or what's worst, because all bike lanes are great, all roads are great, but more the farther separated from cars you are.
Exactly. So we have trails and bike paths, which is just like a path through a park or a hydro corridor, or something that's completely should be devoid of any cars. I have seen them on there sometimes.
As being the most separated.
The most separated,
yeah.
Exactly. Then we have cycle tracks, which are protected bike lanes. So usually a physical barrier, not just paint.
And those barriers can also vary in their quality. You can have the concrete blocks, you can have a taller concrete wall, or you can just have one of those plastic flexible posts.
Or a decorative barrier.
Yeah, like the planters on at Danforth.
But we had those, I don't think they exist anymore. We had those wavy plastic things for a while, which didn't last long.
The cars kept hitting them.
Yeah.
They came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Do we already say bike lanes? Oh, they're just bike lanes, painted lanes, which are obviously slightly flawed because people just pull into them as if it's not marked.
Those are the
lanes.
parking spots with a picture of a bike on them. Yeah.
Contra lanes are great too. Often one ways will have another lane going in the opposite direction, strictly for bikes. Again, pretty mixed, only paint generally in my experience. Almost only paint, yeah. Obviously you need space for emergency vehicles on occasion to go around things, but in my experience, people like to kind of square up and go down the middle of the road and just over top of the lane. So you're just kind of playing chicken with cars.
The yellow line means nothing. So.
And then we have sharrows, which is that it's to remind cars that you're there, and then they get mad when you are. It's that just painted arrow with the bike logo kind of in the middle of what is sometimes a parking lane off peak hours, and then during rush hour it will become just kind of a free-for-all, but it's too narrow to go on the edge, so you're supposed to just take the lane and enrage everyone around you.
Sharrows are a hollow gesture from a car-centric society.
A very hollow gesture. And then the worst infrastructure is, of course, just nothing, and sharrows are only one step above that.
They're basically nothing, but there's some paint. Yeah.
But they are the illusion of infrastructure and the illusion of safety as well. So I think we're trying to decide how to structure this, and we're going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons. In this case, we may make some generalizations about bike lanes in general and infrastructure we see here in the city and in the greater Toronto area, but also lots of specifics about the infrastructure we got right outside the shop, because we ride it every single day. We watched it go from a big old pit.
From nothing to worse than nothing, which is a giant pit of dirt. And then it stayed like that for a very long time, to being these we'll get into how the quality of these bike lanes.
So we have a couple notes here. So first thing, bike lanes, we're saying good. Bike lanes are generally good. Obviously it's not a straightforward they're always good. They can create issues, and sometimes other conflicts do arise depending on the design. So that's also why we're talking about this too. There's nuance to bike lanes. There's not one system fits every space. So generally we like bike lanes because there's clear separation from traffic, which is exactly why we have that loose hierarchy list of infrastructure. The ones outside are elevated. So there actually is like a physical separation. Someone would have to physically drive up a curb in like a large vehicle to
like
get
even
in
if,
there.
Even if people don't notice that there is a bike lane there when they're driving, they will notice when they feel it hit their tires.
Yeah. They start mounting the curb and they realize they're not.
Some people still don't notice, but you know.
So we like these as well because obviously they encourage more cycles or more people to cycle. We also were talking about the sense of belonging because when there's actually like obviously space for you on the road, that's not just paint, that's not just a hollow gesture of here's a Sharrow, just get in there. And also they're great for building confidence for younger cyclists or newer cyclists. And that's, I think...
You can start cycling at any age, new cyclists.
New cyclists, exactly. And I think the other thing that's great about that elevation we have here is visibility is increased, both for like people seeing you from a car, but generally you, since you are often almost at grade with the sidewalk, you can see a little further, which is kind of nice too.
Yeah, I think bike lanes are good for people who might not be like as confident for sure, but also having no bike lane at all means that cars do have to often watch out for you, which means they're more conscious of your presence than they might be like in a separated bike lane like we see on college. And it also provides more room to pass if you don't have a bike lane. If you are locked into an elevated space, you can't like deviate from that without, you know, putting yourself in danger.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't really pass. You're kind of locked in.
For the bike lane.
For the bike lane. It is kind of like replicating the car structures.
Yes.
Where you are like trapped in traffic. If there's a slower cyclist, similar to like a slower car in lane, there's nowhere else to go. You're locked into that lane.
Sometimes you have people also who are just struggle holding their line and they kind of wave around and you're like, I don't know if I want to try to pass because I'm just going to create issues.
Yeah.
You know? So we also talk obviously about the bad here. And one of the first notes we came with was that when there is bike infrastructure that is dedicated, is separated, cars start to think that you are only allowed to be in the bike lane, which is obviously if it's there, you're going to use it. But the irony is, and we'll get more to this later, but being at grade with the sidewalk, people often would almost see it as an extension of the sidewalk. And then people think, oh, the car area is narrower, so they kind of use it as a jumping off point for crossing the street mid-block. So that can be a little bit of an issue to navigate.
This was like something we saw outside the shop like a ton before they put that paint down.
Yeah, the painted like signage on the ground to demarcate bike lane.
A huge difference.
Which did make a huge difference, mainly for pedestrians and pedestrian interference with the cycling. So a little more specifics about these bike lanes specifically. We did note the finishing varied wildly. We were getting really excited. At least I was seeing like, oh wow, they're really like, they're grading stuff down. They're like adding new drainage. And I was like, that's always an issue. There's always drainage issues in these things. But once they finished, I noticed what they did early versus what they finished at the very end. That was like, I think some of the last stuff we had was right outside the shop here. And it's just like, they didn't even smooth it out to the like current streetscape. It's like, there's like a ridge and it's like lumpy. And then on top of that, the drainage kind of went out the window at some point where there is some new drains in certain areas, but there's also these huge puddles that form.
Well, like there's new drains, but none of the roads slope downwards into them. So it does just collect on the curbside.
Yeah. There, like, if it's rained in the last 3 days, there are certain sections. I actually took some video.
Know. If you've been traveling,
there'll be
about
a 2 to 3. Actually, I've seen it up to about 4 feet wide, but it's like 30 feet long too. So, and it's not only in the bike lane, but it's also parallel right beside it in the road off of the new curb off the bike lane. So it's just like what seems like a generously large bike lane. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, we're getting squeezed, and this is even scarier in the winter when it's like that's also ice. So that was, I think, probably the biggest.
Well, I mean, there's also like these weird little pinch points at the end of every every block.
Yeah,
it does narrow significantly for no reason. Well, no, it's to allow cars to turn more generously. But like, yeah, it's rough.
I think the other thing we were talking about was talking about turning. I think also with all this new infrastructure, we've noticed there's obviously not super consistent application of how the infrastructure kind of goes in, and it varies slightly by jurisdiction. And obviously Toronto's huge and it used to be a bunch of different municipalities. So seeing the consistency vary quite a bit, but like, because cars aren't all used to this, because people get their license, they have their license for their whole lives and they don't basically need to retest unless they are problematic, like crashing into things, drunk driving, or
even
elderly.
then, sometimes you don't need to retest.
So the thing we note a lot is the bike infrastructure, although it is good and generally good for people getting into it and like learning to cycle and, gaining, confidence, you still have the issue of you are in car space and constantly crossing car areas. So the grade, you're at sidewalk grade and then you dip down and then you're back in with the cars. But at this point, you're also a parking car distance away. So the normal blind spot kind of sensibility when you're in a car is very different. You have to kind of look wide and turn your head. So a lot of people don't. So there's still that right hook danger zone, which I think a lot of people...
They've also added an entire right lane for parking, which means that any cyclists are also even further blocked off visually from like any cars that might be traveling.
So I think that's kind of the big sticking points for us. I mean, like it makes it sound like we're really not down with them. I think it's just unfortunate we don't hold the people gaining these like very large contracts for the city a little more accountable for the quality of work they're doing. It's like, I thought drainage would be like fun to, like, if it doesn't drain, that seems like it's just wrong. Like, we're not in a very wet area and still somehow we seal in this water. But anyways, clearly I'm really worried about this drainage. So we're also going to talk, we actually did ask a lot of our followers to see like what people thought. A few kind of casual takes.
A lot of really positive takes.
So as far we have, okay, love them. Another one, really good and smooth.
Are you?
I don't necessarily agree. Need them extended. I do agree.
Yes. I think that the places where they chose the stop and end don't necessarily make a ton of sense. Like, I think Shaw is a very popular biking corridor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think extending them from College and Shaw all the way to wherever they are now, like they end at Bay, right?
Well, yeah. To be honest, I ride to the very end every day because I live just beyond them. And of course, in Little Italy, it's like the tightest little spot. That's Manning, I guess. Manning, they end. And of course, it's like you have to just merge into traffic, but also all the cars are doing the same. And everyone's trying to race to get in the line. And it gets actually probably the most stressful. And of course, we do Cafe Tio now. And they just started installing that, like, I think yesterday they started it up. And that is such a pinch point, but it's such like a nice business area. I feel like it's almost on the cusp of being more European, where it's just like a little shut off spot and you have to take a different way to pass through because it's too narrow and it's too busy and there's barely room on the sidewalk, even though it is wider sidewalks, because the wider sidewalks drive more people there, which means it's all pedestrians all the time. I mean,
Cafe Tio is also very car centric in the way it's like operated. Like that pushes out into the road often in a very inconsistent way. There's overhang from the patio umbrellas that's like, often not very well considered, but also it takes away from pedestrian space walking around sometimes. And it makes it more challenging for people with mobility devices. So this is great for people in cars coming to the city.
That's true.
Right?
I have almost had my eyes taken out with a patio umbrella overhanging the bike lane.
Well, and sometimes like when it is windy, the patio umbrella will do a little rotate and it might not stay put, right?
Similarly too, just like as a pedestrian or like I'm often walking around the neighborhood and all of a sudden you're like trying to just go from point A to point B. And now it's like, well, the sidewalk has become an extension of the patio as well, because there's like a business running food across. And I've watched literally just like people unable to walk by because there's just so much happening back and forth, which is, I think it's something to think about. It's like we do value this space and it's obviously better used for a business than a parking spot, but like.
Yeah, no.
we
definitely want to have that space. But obviously it's like, there was this is kind of a non sequitur, but there was a proposal a while back to turn Kensington Market into a pedestrian only area, kind of like they do on pedestrian Sundays, but all the time. And I think that's like, It's a really strong way to cement the importance of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
To like make it a landmark by doing something special, like removing the cars. That is a pedestrian first space historically. And cars only really go through there because they're not familiar with the layout of the city.
I feel like I always see license plates from like not Toronto and Kensington. I'm like, yeah, you looked up to go here, but you didn't think about the reality of being in here with a car or a huge truck.
Like those streets are clearly not designed to have cars flowing through them.
I mean, the other thing too is as soon as the weather turns nice, it's like patio season. Everyone's like jam packed. You can barely walk on the sidewalk. You have to walk in the street, and then like cars get like kind of impatient. You're like, there's like hundreds
there's literally
of people.
No space to walk on this sidewalk.
You can't walk on the sidewalk, exactly.
Yeah.
So a couple more comments we had. These are a few comments specifically, I think, tailored to the early time before they had painted, because I agree this was a really big problem.
Days.
Someone said, great when folks aren't walking and standing on them when speaking about the college lanes. And another one, it's extended sidewalk space for people parking their cars and or getting ready to jaywalk.
Yeah, that's definitely been a problem for me, like where people are just wandering out into there. And even when you say like, excuse me, or I'm coming by, or you ring your little bell, it doesn't necessarily register for them that they are not in a sidewalk space, that they are in a bike lane.
Actually, the thing I notice more than anything, continuously after they have painted, most people don't stand in them as much. Some people may walk once in a while, but generally if they hear you coming, they kind of move over. But the sketchiest thing for me is, so they've made, obviously, you are supposed to stop and yield for all the transit platforms. Yeah. But people see the transit platform thing and think like, oh, this is the subway platform.
To wait.
Yeah, and people will stand and post up, put a cart in the middle of the bike lane, and then there's the classic like, the streetcar is like coming with you, you're going ahead of the streetcar, and people just start walking out. You're like, I have a green, and this is like, it's tricky, because I think inconsistent application of the rules in everyone's kind of navigation of like, oh, I'm getting on the streetcar in like 30 seconds. I should start moving towards it.
Especially because there are bus loading platforms that do look very similar.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And they are encouraging people to stand on. And I feel like, I don't know, I think it is like the bumpy textured yellow plates. It just implied that's a platform for me to stand on. Because it kind of feels like a train station. It kind of feels like a subway. I get it. But it also like, it's something I have to literally dodge every single day.
I think pedestrians are not the problem. It's the space that's been taken away from all of us by cars, right?
Yeah. Another person said they love how wide the lanes are from Spadina to Manning. I agree. I think the counterpoint, they're all like...
Could use a little more width at the corners.
Yeah, there is often pinch points at the corner, which I think is like the false sense of width, because everyone kind of meanders on their bike and they're not the most consistent. But I think a lot of people also, instead of just crossing to use the correct lane of travel, like, you know, just like you would in a car, people will go oncoming in the bike lane. And you're like, okay, this isn't actually helpful. This is like...
Maybe a little too wide.
A little too wide, maybe. Yeah, well, it's funny because I think the mix of like wide enough to be able to comfortably and safely pass versus, you know, too narrow where you're just stuck behind someone constantly.
Yeah. Well, I think they are widened in order to allow for people to pass safely without having too much conflict. But I think the problem is that people who aren't really familiar with cycling infrastructure might use them to travel both directions.
Yeah.
And you know, I've done that too. I've gone the wrong way.
I try to not, and I only do it when it's empty.
I don't do it for more than a block, and if I see someone coming, that's my bad. I get out of the way.
It's usually just to rejoin correctly, because the irony is often like, there's too many people, and I'm not gonna like, I'll take up more space walking my bike on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
I'm like 2 people wide now, and have like bags or something, and I'm trying to get over there.
But that's why I don't fault anyone. If I see them, I don't get on their case.
I give a pass as long as they're not fully just traveling without, you know, consideration. So a couple other comments.
Also, they're often not looking around and caring for other people who are like also using the bike.
That's true.
Right.
Kevin, also the gripe was where they narrow quite a bit. Another comment was that they're super terrific. So overwhelmingly positive feedback. There's an interesting point here, which I actually talked to one of our customers about, and they said, love them up until the point of Augusta. And
westbound or eastbound?
Well,
Come on.
that's true. So if you're not familiar with the area, Augusta is Kensington Market, and it is a northbound travel. So when it hits College, it ends. So you can either turn right or left. When you're turning right to eastbound, you just turn right into the lane, no problem.
Easy peasy.
Easy. The issue is if you are traveling west and doing a left-hand turn, you have curb cuts where the pedestrian should enter.
Yes.
And then there's a curb up to the bike lane. So you could theoretically, you'd have to cut along that and do a harsh left turn, or just turn as a vehicle and like rejoin again. There's no kind of easy way to navigate it. And
how are you supposed to ride that?
I'm not sure.
What I usually do is I will just turn left and go into the pedestrian area and then go into the bike lane.
Yeah.
But like looking at it, that seems to be the intuitive way to do it.
Yeah.
But I do see that there's a few like other dips. I just don't think that they make sense.
I mean, just to
why isn't that whole area flat though? It should all just be lower.
I think it's because cars will just go straight. They'll see it as a loading dock
into
and
the building.
ram into the building.
Yeah.
But I think the thing about one other gripe I had was there is a bit of a disparity of where the level lane is up on the curb versus where the lane dips down. So to know where you can easily go up and down, I think is going to cause some less experienced cyclists to have accidents. Yeah. Because you can sort of sometimes use it almost as an extension to pass if someone's a little wavy and you want to give them extra space just to be cautious. But there's also pulls in that concrete little kind of island on the side. So it's not a perfect situation, but anyways, another couple things we have some comments from people.
I guess I could use like some spray painted highlighter to know where those areas are.
It's kind of what you want though. You just want like literally like an edge. Like it's like you normally see in any, like, I'm pretty sure it's like literally there's standards in, edges. You want a highlighted edge to know when it's raised versus when it's level.
Yeah, urban planners chime in.
Is that not code or something? I don't know. Just
maybe they're still working on it. Yeah. The paint's coming.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they aren't done yet and we're just jumping the gun with this because they've only been working at it for like a year, right?
Feels like longer. Feels like longer.
So we pulled a couple comments from Reddit as well.
Comments from Reddit were a lot more negative than the comments from our followers.
They were, yeah. So, I think our followers are
shouts
generally
out for keeping it positive.
Thank you for keeping it positive, yeah. So some of these, take these with a grain of salt because a lot of these comments were, when they seemed very finished, but they kind of left them unpainted for months. So a lot of people obviously were using them. And some of those comments earlier about like the pedestrians and the interference there, that was a lot pre-paint, which I think colored a lot of people's opinions negatively because they're like, oh, it's just an extension of the sidewalk. So here,
are we going to cover usernames?
No, I'll cover usernames. Redacted says, I've been using the small stretch of the new bike lanes along College, and I actually don't love them. They're really bumpy and uneven in spots and designed in a way that makes people think that they're just a sidewalk extension. In my opinion, they need to add something that creates some separation because I've already had a handful of close calls with pedestrians.
They added paint.
They added paint, yes.
They gave you
solved,
paint.
Done. And then someone agreed to this. The end manning is also dangerous because it stops abruptly and you have to merge quick into the left lane to do, left lane to the left of parked cars. For an experienced cyclist, it should be fine, but for all the cyclists that don't know signs, don't check over their shoulder, don't signal, etc., it will impact everyone around them.
By me saying it will be fine also doesn't mean it won't suck. It sucks. I find it sucks.
Yeah. Oh, and this person also added, and don't get me started on all the cyclists who are already biking the wrong way because the lanes are so wide. I will say I actually pass that manning thing every day, and it's bad. It's honestly I think that's borderline going to become an intersection because cars take manning south, so they're trying to cut through. The sightlines are bad. There's a merge of cyclists. The cyclists are trying to speed up to join. Cars are speeding up to get squeezed because it's super wide sidewalks and narrower lanes for traffic. And there's also streetcars. So people are often trying to race the streetcar. So the combination of that, and then also we're talking about Cafe TO. There's also Cafe TO in there. So it's like if you're with a streetcar and Cafe TO, there's barely room for a cyclist. Yeah. So it gets
pretty scary. When
I think it is actually probably one of the
streetcars also get scared of you. Yeah, they're like, I'm going to slow down.
I think it's probably one of the more unsuspecting dangerous locations. And I also do see a lot of like.
Well, it's also such a popular cycling route.
There's a ton of restaurants in that area too. So there's a ton of Ubers, and I often find they stop abruptly and often try to turn and just block the bike lane, where it's like you're trying to speed up and merge
It's almost
with
like
traffic.
they're surprised that they have to stop too.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah. But again, I think
now.
that's just chalked up to like maybe lack of experience. They don't really plan ahead. Because I actually, when I see a bunch of drivers, I'll often leave the bike lane a block early so I can show the cars that I'm there.
App-based delivery services or app-based food delivery.
Did I say
Oh, sure. You shouldn't beep it out. Yeah. You know what? Let's beep it out.
Yeah, we'll beep it. We'll get that in post.
But it's true. I think that a lot of app-based delivery services like train their users not to care about other people. Like on the driver's side, obviously you're getting into these restaurants and being treated poorly. You're getting into your customers and often being treated fairly poorly, and by the company you're also being treated poorly. So you end up also treating others poorly, right?
It's true. And we all know
it trains you to not care about other people.
The bad guy is the large corporations.
Yes, it's redacted.
So another couple comments from some of these early posts on the bike lanes was, are they going to be painting any markings?
They did it.
They did. They did it. Okay, so, but the follow-up comment or response to this was probably, but it's only built up until Bathurst right now. East of that, it's unpaved and in the early stages. I imagine they're going to wait to paint until it's more complete. But honestly, looking at the work up close, it looks very shoddy. I bet that asphalt will be cracked and warped after one winter.
Cracked? Not yet. Warped? You bet.
Yeah, very warped, quite warped. And also,
well, I think it was poured a little wavy too. So maybe.
I think they just didn't level it very well, to be honest. So we have a slightly hotter take we found from a Reddit post here. So, all right. Honestly, all for a bike lane, but turning college into a single lane with a streetcar? Come on. The streetcar just crawls by, slowing traffic to a halt.
Let me just interject. It is 2 lanes.
It is 2 lanes.
It's only 1 lane because you guys want to park.
So slowing traffic to a halt being the major cause for congestion, especially when they break down. Quick pause. I don't know streetcars that break down almost ever. What I see more often
there
than
is
not,
one reason they break down though.
It's the cars jumping in ahead and then getting hit by a streetcar. It's like, it's a frickin' giant red train. Maybe.
Oh, it snuck up on me. Came out of nowhere.
Came out of nowhere. I didn't see it.
Should have been wearing a reflective vest, right?
So they continued. This has got to be one of the worst ideas for a major city. Toronto traffic was intense when there was 6 million
major
people.
Major city written as a proper noun.
Major city, yes. Now it's 9 million with 500,000 more coming. Let's be honest, they aren't camping out on Trudeau's front lawn. There's a lot of I haven't checked any of these numbers.
This person is implying a lot of things. It tells us a lot about their worldview.
Yeah. Let's reduce lanes. Does that make sense? Also, last I checked, it's the drivers that fork a large part of the bill for road/pathway construction. Should be maybe require bikes, e-bikes, electrical scooters to be licensed to help with some of the cost/maintenance. I mean, for every 1 car that curbs a cyclist, there's 10 cyclists that cut into traffic and get hit out of stupidity. Living at college in Manning for 15 years, seen way more idiots on bikes than in cars.
That's our neighbor.
I know that's my neighbor. That's unfortunate. Someone did follow up, and before we jump on this comment, cars create traffic. More people on transit/bicycles or just walking equals less traffic on the road. And contrary to what you may believe, property taxes actually pay for roads/highways. In other words, everyone subsidizes roadways in one way or another, not just drivers. And who do you think creates more wear and tear on roads between a bicycle and a car? I honestly am always shocked by how people somehow miss the connection of the car is the traffic. Like when you are in a car, you are contributing to traffic, and more often than not,
like I have to get somewhere. I don't know what these other people are doing here.
But more often than not, you look around, it's like almost always single occupancy. The bulk of cars are single occupancy. They're not people carpooling. They're not people in a big group.
Even ride sharing is often to ferry one person somewhere.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting to see is obviously, even as, cyclists or people that bike, bike lanes aren't like just like always a resounding success. People do have issues with them. There obviously are some, issues with the way we implement it. We carve out a small space of clearly car-centric infrastructure and then make it a little more bike-centric. And then people think, problem solved, we're all good. There are pinch points, there's learning curves, both for implementing and using.
Execution is never perfect.
Exactly.
Right?
And I think what I see from this is, yes, it is better than it was before, but I think we can also use this criticism and constructive criticism to shape the way we kind of create policy to encourage higher standards for infrastructure. Like, the infrastructure should be good and just consistent everywhere. And we've been getting piecemeal infrastructure for many years. And now we're starting to see more larger projects going further outside of the downtown core, which is exciting and great. But we also need to make sure we are not just saying, oh, good, there's a bike lane, it's done. Because I go to bike lanes outside the city center and they're just filled with gravel and sand and seem like filthy and unkept because like they don't treat them like they do the roads. It's just, it's just like the garbage collecting area sometimes.
Same for snow. Often road waste gets cleared out of the car area into pedestrian and cyclist areas. Same for snow.
Yeah. I will say that's probably the thing I'm most excited about these bike lanes for is the winter. The winter, college became a nightmare because snow would sort of get packed up and be like this slumped over icy kind of chute, and then cars could barely get on it, so they'd park where you would want to ride, and they'd be like 3 feet out from the curb, and it's all just ice. So at least with the dedicated infrastructure, they are putting out, they're doing the right thing.
Those piles of snow would also encourage people to park farther out, which would mean that you couldn't actually pass safely.
And also you can't see the lines in the road, which, it's not like it makes a big difference for a lot of drivers. They don't really listen to them that well. But I think
suggestions.
I think Toronto has been doing a good job at least maintaining the infrastructure they are implementing for the most part, particularly with snow clearing in the winter, because that used to be a big issue. But, what do you think? Is this good? Is it bad? Is it shoddy? Is it great? Let us know in the comments. Also, what should we talk about next? What's a spicy subject you want to hear us ramble about?
They are better than nothing. They are better than nothing. As we discussed, nothing is sometimes pretty good.
Is that a wrap?
Is that a wrap?
Yeah. All right.
Thank you for watching.
See you next time.